Your city, your stories. Celebrating the people and places that make Houston shine. It's Great Day Houston. And now, here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Great Day Houston. Holidays like Mother's Day can often be taken for granted until she's no longer there to celebrate it with you. My mother actually passed away on Mother's Day, 2019. Our first guest lost her mother the same year. What makes her story even more complicated is her mother died because of her father's mistake. Theo Boyd has gathered her experiences with the loss of not only her mom, but later her dad and her husband as well in a different way. She's created an inspirational guide that tackles deep emotional loss titled My Grief Is Not Like Yours. She says writing this book was her healing, and now she's finding that it is also helping others to heal. Theo joins us this morning with her story in hopes of helping others. Good morning.
Good morning, Deborah.
You are proof that, for so many people, when you're in the middle of your grief, you feel like there's no way you can get past the next few seconds, the next hour. And if you have some tools to help you through that, that's what you're hoping to do, is that you can find that you can not only survive, but thrive and remember those in a great way, and that in a sense keeps them still alive. All
yes.
right. I'm going to go from the beginning with you.
Okay.
You had that all-American life. Growing up on the farm, you were named after your two grandmothers.
Yes, I was named after my mom's mom, that was Thelma, and my dad's mom was Elizabeth. And they were going to call me Thelma Elizabeth, but then they just decided at the last minute to combine it. So I'm Elizabeth.
They were creative, weren't they?
They
up there
were.
On the farm. Yeah. You lived in Waxahachie near Dallas, which is a small town but close enough to the big city.
Yes.
Your dad was also a minister.
Yes, he was. My dad was a farmer preacher, and he pastored Bethel Bible Church in Whitney, Texas for 33 years.
What are your fondest memories of growing up that way?
Oh gosh, being out in the fields and helping Daddy pick watermelons and cantaloupes in the summer for our school clothes money, and Daddy breaking a watermelon so that my sister and I would eat it and be, behaved while he and my mom got all the melons in the truck.
Yeah, the story you just told just brought life back to your parents, right?
Yes.
You had that all-American life foundation to grow up on. So you grow up, you do the next thing that we do. You go to school, you get married. So you got married and you taught high school English.
I did. I taught 10th graders, and it was so rewarding.
God bless you.
I know. They're the perfect size shoe, so to speak, because they haven't got their driver's license yet, but they're still wanting to be an adult. They're in a hurry to grow up. So I always had to bring them back in, and I really enjoyed teaching those kids.
What did you know about the power of writing before then?
Well, I taught creative writing in high school as well, and my dad, I'd watched him write his entire life, writing sermons and writing poetry about the farm and short stories that he would share with my sister and I for bedtime stories.
Yeah.
So I'd watched my dad model writing, and I knew that writing was a good way to get everything out of you and onto the page.
Yeah, little did you know how important that would be in your personal life later. But you had a daughter, you were married, you volunteered, you were part of the church, all those things that we say is, God, America, and apple pie.
Yes.
And you'd always been a writer, as you said, because you watched your dad write. Mother's Day and Father's Day, we never know when it's going to be our last one.
Right.
And for you, one day it became a last one. Your mom was healthy. She was still working the farm.
She was. They were both just, viable, working in the farm every day. And my mom was, like I tell everybody, she could have ran a marathon on the day that she tragically died.
Yeah. How old was she?
She was 74.
Yeah.
And my parents were 6 months shy of their 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
So after July 29th, 2019, when the accident happened, I had to quickly transition to start planning her funeral.
Yeah. So you all have been texting like you always did. Between you have a sister, right?
Yes.
So you would always text amongst each other.
Yes.
And then something caught your attention.
Yeah, I didn't get a text back from my mom on that day, July 29th, 2019, and then later get a phone call that there had been an accident on the farm. So I learned when I got to the farm that my father had accidentally run over her with one of the farm tractors, and it happened instantly, and she was instantly killed.
Yeah. This is hard no matter what way you look at it, but it's harder because you lost a piece of two parents at that point.
You're right.
Your mom died, but then your dad, the incredible guilt that he had, and I don't know for you, was there some anger? Was there some, what were you doing?
Yeah, you know, I never blamed him. I knew that it was a tragic accident, the worst kind of accident where someone that you love dies. And I never blamed him, but, you know, I knew that the guilt inside of him was killing him from the inside out. He was crushed.
Yeah, and what can you do to help him, right? There's just...
Right, you know, and I tried to be there. I tried to be there and be constant support for him and let him know that I loved him so much. And I was trying to relate to his pain, but it was just too great.
Too great, and then the anger that the whole thing just happened. Like, why? How can that just happen?
Exactly, and you know, he was saying words that I'd never heard this minister, my father, say, and my counselor at that time said, let him say the words that he needs to say.
Yeah.
Those are the words that carry the weight of his pain.
Yeah.
And I think we shy away from that as a society. I think that grieving people need to be allowed to say the words that they need to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, oftentimes we turn to God, we turn to our faith, we turn back to that foundation in times of stress and trouble like that. But also we question our faith and we question God. Why did you let this happen? Did you ever go through that?
Oh, amen. You know, I lost my faith, and I talked a good game for a while. You know, I don't believe in God anymore. If my dad's cursing God, then I am too. But I realized every time I tried to lose my faith, it brought me back.
Yeah. Yeah, then you had another loss.
Yes.
The loss of your marriage, which a lot of people say is almost like a death in some way, right?
It really is. It's very difficult, and that dropped me to my knees as well. So many times I've been dropped to my knees, but I realized that everybody grieves in their own way.
Right.
And, you know, grief brings everything to the surface. Grief is this great filter. And those of you out there that understand this, you know what I'm talking about. You will find out who your true friends are in grief.
Yeah, yeah. You also find out who your true self is.
You sure do. Yes, that's the positive part of it. You can come out on the other side.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Theo's emotional roller coaster doesn't end there. We'll share what happened next that prompted her to finally share her feelings in a book in hopes of helping herself and others. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with author Theo Boyd, who has written the book, My Grief Is Not Like Yours. It's aimed at helping people to heal after losing loved ones, in particular parents. She had already lost her mother in a terrible accident. Just as Theo was rounding that corner, another loss came. Of course, we talked about the loss of your marriage, and you're putting it all back together. As you mentioned, your dad went through tremendous guilt, tremendous pain for that accident that happened that killed your mother. 6 months away from their 50th wedding anniversary, all these things, and every year, of course, of the anniversary of the accident, the anniversary of the Mother's Day, the anniversary of their marriage, all those things weighed heavily on him. Yes,
you know, he was living a nightmare, and I understood that, but every day I was checking in on him, every day I was calling him, and he was, you know, he said, I'm staying here for you and your sister. Mm.
You know, so often that's what keeps us going, is we stay here for others, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to stay here for ourselves too, right?
Yes.
And then what happened on a day when you realized he couldn't even stay here for others anymore?
You know, we celebrated Father's Day, June the, well, I think it was the day before Father's Day, 2022. And my sister, it was easier for her on that day. So we had a great day that Saturday with him. And then Father's Day morning, that morning, I just got the idea, I'll take him breakfast and surprise him. Yeah. So it was Father's Day morning, 2022, and I went to check on Daddy, and I found he had taken his life.
Wow. Did he leave a note as to why? Or
he did. He left my sister and I a note, and he said, please don't blame me, but I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I'm hurting, and I'm tired of living and tired of dying.
Well, and we just hope that he was able to join your mom.
Yes,
right?
And I know he did.
Yeah. And by the way, we want to make a point that if anybody is suffering and hurting, you know, we've done many stories on suicide prevention. I think May is like Mental Health Month.
Yes.
And so, that there is help out there. Oftentimes there's just a little window that if you can, before you do something, reach out to someone, they can pull you back from that. And so the suicide prevention, you can text or call 988, and
yes.
That's a point that you wanted to make as well.
Absolutely, and that's in the book as well. I want people to have that resource at hand.
Yeah, all right. So that's when you decided to put your pain on paper. You were feeling numb, you were feeling angry, you were feeling sad, you were reaching for things, and you couldn't find exactly what, although there's a lot of books and things out there on grief, it's not your grief, right?
Right.
And so you decided to put pen to paper and spill your feelings on the page. What did it feel like to put that pen to paper for even the first few words?
You know, it was ugly. It was very hard. And I actually took some pictures of myself crying. I wanted to remember what it felt like to write this book. I needed a book that hit me as hard as I'd been hit.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it.
Yeah.
And I just put everything, it's a memoir, because I'm walking the reader through the exact steps, but then at the same time, I'm taking them out and I'm showing them the light outside.
Right.
So they're walking with me throughout the whole journey.
Yeah, it's almost like an ode to your father too, that you're writing again. Right?
Exactly, exactly.
You devote your time to writing. You speak out about loss. You speak to many groups, to help people go through some things. And you have several tips after losing someone you love. And in this case, we were talking about parents because Mother's Day is coming up, and then of course Father's Day right after that. First is to give yourself a break. And I find that I was trying to, when my mom passed away and people came to see me, I was trying to comfort them.
Yes.
Right? I was like, oh, it's so she lived a long life, and thank you for coming over, and oh my God, is that your famous cherry pie? Right?
Yeah.
I was just,
that's what we do.
Yeah.
Our nature, especially as women, is to just comfort and help people, and you have to give yourself some grace in grief, is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Give yourself grace. It's going to be okay if you can't make all the recipes or do all the things that,
if you don't want to talk to anybody.
Or if you don't want to talk to anybody, that's okay.
Yeah.
So give yourself a break and be kind to yourself.
All right. Honor your parents on holidays instead of running away from it.
Exactly. You know what I'm going to do after I leave today, Deborah? I'm going to go buy a Mother's Day cake, one that I would take to her, and I'm going to buy a Mother's Day card that I would give to her, and I'm just going to enjoy those things.
Yeah, I went through my mom's things after a while, and I found so much about her that I didn't know. Because as kids, we think we really know a lot about our parents. We don't know a lot because they are busy trying to raise us and take care of us, right?
Yes, we're a job.
Yeah, so I found my mom had kept every key to every house, every car she bought, and there was just a pile of keys, and she would have little tags on them. My first car, so I found a picture of her on the farm in Linden, Texas back in 1928, and there she is with my uncle and my aunt, and I put some of those keys in the shadow box right there. It's hanging on my wall, and I basically said these are some of the keys to my life. And so I just took pieces of her belongings and my dad's belongings, and they're around the house in a way that's not just a key. It's symbolic for me. So we know a lot of Hispanics will have the altar in the home.
Yes.
So, all right, celebrate yourself as mom and dad.
Absolutely. If you've got a child, I have a daughter that's graduating law school here in Houston this Saturday. So I'm going to celebrate her and celebrate their grandchild that has done this amazing thing.
That's the legacy. Like what was in you, what your parents instilled in you, you were able to help instill in your daughter, and that legacy continues.
Yes.
Volunteer for a cause. We look at this even in psychology. For a while there, everything was medicated. Medicate the feelings away. And now it's more like, no, let's process the feelings, And so when you go do something good for somebody else, it releases endorphins, and that you just feel good, and you feel like you still have purpose, right?
Daddy always said, if you want to feel better, go help somebody else. And that there could never be a truer statement. And that's what I feel like with the book. I was hurting and I put it on the page, and now I find that it's helping others.
Yeah. All right. Become your family's matriarch or patriarch.
You may have to step into that role. If your family is missing that pivotal person, the person that glued everybody together, you may have to step in and become that person.
Yeah. That's if Thanksgiving dinners were always at mom's house, you say, okay, they'll be at my house this year, or they'll be here this year.
Step into it and make them proud, because they'd be happy that you took that over.
Yeah, I have a friend, she's two sisters, and what they did for Thanksgiving is they said, okay, each one of us is responsible for one of mom's dishes.
There you go.
Yeah, and so and bring it here, and you're not expected to make it as good as mom, but try. Right?
Pressure.
Yeah, and celebrate your parents' extraordinary. And I would go a step further and say, make an effort to find out what their extraordinary was. You know it again as a child, but ask surviving relatives, especially ones that grew up alongside them or older than them or whatever, what you noticed special, and then give me one good story about them.
Yes, and just do your research a little bit, and as I did with this book, and I learned so much more about my parents that I thought I knew, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I find that they lived these extraordinary lives. They died in extraordinary ways, and now their story is still helping others.
Yeah. I found that my mom had written a diary ever since she was probably, for like 50 years. She had written in pages of those little black binders, you know, those little plastic.
Yes.
She had written every day a story in that little book, and I just kept reading and I kept reading, and I discovered a woman that I didn't know. Right. But it was amazing. But I also discovered that woman is in me.
She is.
And she's also in my son, and same with my dad. So your last advice for someone who is going through a loss right now, this is their first Mother's Day or first Father's Day without a parent.
Talk to someone. You know, it's easy for me. I talk to everybody. I could have a conversation with a fence post.
Yeah, you and me both. We'll both be out there talking to fence posts.
But, you know, talk to someone. You know, I have a dog. He's a great companion.
Yeah.
I talk to him and find somebody, but more importantly, find somebody professional that you can talk to about these feelings.
And don't be ashamed of that.
Do not be. Find somebody that is trained in your specific type of loss, your specific grief, because getting that out of you is going to help you.
Yeah. All right. Talking to a fence post. I love it. Are you oak or cedar? You know?
Hey, I've done it.
Yeah, right. Theo, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And we want to remind you, if you or someone you know is struggling with depression, help is available. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support. You can call or text the Lifeline at 988 or chat with someone online at 988lifeline.org. All right, and love your book. Thank you very much. Well, for most people, it's not if, but when you'll have to deal with the loss of a loved one. You can get a copy of My Grief Is Not Like Yours online or at your local bookstore. For more information about Theo Boyd or to connect with her, visit our website, greatdayhouston.com.